Hi, am I audible? And please let me know if the screen is visible. Okay, thank you. So today we're going to talk about Turing machines and related to your exam. Is the CR present? So I got the feedback from you all that you all have opted for the WhatsApp exam, right? And so I already told your representative that yes, we can have the WhatsApp exam, but then means everyone should be ready with the setup so that they cannot complain against any technical issues or anything like that, right? So once a question is really pasted in the group, WhatsApp group, you should be able to answer and submit answer within the deadline. After deadline, no answers will be entertained, whatever the issue you face. Then we cannot really talk about that. Right. So you have to make sure that no technical issues happens. For example, laptop crashes, mobile crashes, or so many issues have been raised in the past, right? Or so make sure that everything is all set up so that you don't have any such issue. Yeah, so for every question, the deadline will be different. So with the question, the deadline will be mentioned. Again, the question will be not same for everyone, right? So what I have planned for, I'm gonna distribute the whole class into some groups, maybe 4, 5, 6 or something like that. And for every question, there will be group number. So whichever group you belong, you have to attempt the question of that group number. So for example, if there are, usually if there is a 4 groups, A, B, C, D, so everyone will be assigned a group ID and the group ID will be shared with you 10 minutes or 5 minutes before the exam. So you should check your group ID and then based on that, you should attempt the question. You should not attempt question from any other group because you will not get any marks for it. So then if I'm giving a question, let's say on a DFA or something like that, so questions will be of similar nature, but it will be very different language or something like that. So each one of you have to attempt different questions as per your group. Right, so there may be 10 groups, there may be any number of groups. So I haven't yet decided all those details, but certainly you all will be distributed in groups and you have to attempt your own question of that group. And group details will be shared just a few minutes before the starting of the exam. Now, that is one thing, and certainly you have to submit within the deadline. So for some question, if I feel that the average time that might be required is 10 minutes, so it will be 10 minutes. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 15 minutes. So it will vary based on the questions and based on the marks also. Not anyone in the group can submit. Everyone in the group should write their own answers. Group formation doesn't mean that you are forming a group and attempting the question together. Group means that now it's just like in usual exams, just to avoid so many people attempting the same question, people will be attempting different questions. So should attempt the question number with your group ID. So for example, if I have to write, let's say, so you can think that if I am saying question number 2, so here you will find somewhere the duration mentioned that 5 minutes. So after posting the question, you will have 5 minutes total time to submit this after that exact timeline. And then for question number 2, there will be options A, B, C, D, E, F. So whatever group you have assigned, you have to attempt that question. So for example, there is guy 1 who is in group B, so he'll be attempting question B of the second. The guy who is in group E, he will be attempting the question number E of the second question. So in this way, you're gonna attempt the questions. Any further questions? So I think very few of you are present there. So representative, you must convey it to everyone. And anyway, I'll prepare a small guideline and I will circulate it before the exam. And it will happen in the TS slot. So whenever your TS exams is supposed to happen, it will happen in the same slot. Now, will the topic of the previous TS will also be there or the new one only? So I haven't thought about that. I will let you know maybe by today evening. Let me just think the syllabus and then I should answer. Just remind me in the group CS203 that I have to answer about this. I will think about that and I will let you know. Maybe after this class. Any other questions? So is this CR present here? What's his name? I always forget. Ritvik, or right? Anyway. Sure, I will share the slides, whatever I have saved, because I did not save the for some classes. But whatever I have, I will share all that in the group. Okay. So let us start today's class then. So today I have actually cut some of the images from this. So far we were following mostly this book Ullman, right? So from Turing Machine onwards, we're gonna follow the Sipser book for our learning. And today, just to save my time, I have actually taken snapshots of some of the diagrams that are given in the book so that I don't have to really draw the whole thing and I can just explain. So let us just start with Turing machine. Okay, so next topic is Turing machines. Right. So Turing machine, so far the models that we have seen, it had some limitations. So for example, the finite memory has a limitation that it cannot save much. So it actually gives a theoretical modeling for those devices which have a small finite memory, that they cannot remember a lot of things. So with that memory, what all can they do? That is about that. Second is your PDAs. PDAs are actually theoretical model for infinitely sized memory available for your computation, but at the same time, you have restriction of accessing the memory. So you can access only in last in, first out manner. But here, as in the last class when I was ending, we told that if we add another stack to the machine, it becomes two stacks form an input tape, which is actually kind of allows editing. You can copy the input on the input tape. Basically, you copy the input on the stack, then put it back on the second stack, and then it is in the same order as the input, and then you can do the shuffling always, right? So in the same way, so that's why in the Turing machine, at place of talking about a stack, it's like that there is a controller given to you. So this is a state controller, and this state controller has a header, and this header is actually pointing to an input tape. So you have an input tape which has cells in it, just like you had previously. But now on the input tape, when your header is pointing towards something, it allows moving the header left and right, first of all, right? Again, you can do the editing on the input tape. So you can replace a symbol by another symbol. So if I have to really differentiate between the DFA and this Turing machine, I can do it very simply by this text. So if you see that a Turing machine can both write and read from the tape, right? So writing and reading both is allowed from the tape, and the head that is there, right? That actually so the head can move both to left and right. The tape is infinite, and the special states for rejecting and accepting take effects immediately. So basically you will have, just like we had accepting state or the final states, here we will have just one accept state and one reject state. And tape is of infinite size, and you can move left, right, and you can write and read both from the tape. Is the screen visible? Okay. So next is how this Turing machine works. Just a second. Oh, due to some issues, it got crashed. Okay, it's no problem. So let's say that how a Turing machine does the computation and everything. So now when you have this input tape and any content is given and you can move from left to right, you can read and write the things, and the tape is of infinite size, and at the same time you have a special way of accepting or rejecting something. The next question comes that how it works. So it is, Turing machine is almost similar as designing the algorithm for it. So suppose now on the tape you are given some input. So the language, let's say that the language is L equals to W hash W, such that W is part of 0, 1 star. So if this is the language, certainly it is not a CFL. So here we're going to design a Turing machine for it. But what in principle, how we should be doing it? So suppose that on an input tape, if there is some string is given to you, right? So the string that is given, let's say that it is 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0 hash 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, right? And then see, when I said infinite length tape, so whatever the input you have present, apart from that, all the symbols are actually blank symbol. So this is a way to write the blank symbol. So these are cells. Okay. Now you have to check whether it's a correct W hash W. So how you gonna do? Basically, you have just a header available. that you can move left to right. So what will be your way of doing it? So if you really want to do it, what you need to do, you have to move from, let's say the header is pointing to the first cell. Then what you want to do, you have to match this thing, this cell with this, right? The first cell after the hash, then this with this with this with this with this. Oh, sorry. This with this, and finally this with this. Yeah. Now, if you see here how we do it, so that's where this movement of the heads comes into picture. So basically, you can move from here to keep moving up to left, 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 left until you find that hash is there. And once you find hash, so you look for the first symbol after that. If here you started with 0, you find a 0, that means a match, then you should come back and try to match the second symbol. Now, while doing that, how you recognize that which symbol I have already matched? So for that, the mechanism is that whenever you match anything, so you started matching 0, so you cross it. That I have already got 0, and once you reach here, if you find a 0, then you should also cross it and say return back successfully. Otherwise, if you don't find a 0 here, so you can declare that although I was coming in search of 0 after it, but I did not find a 0, so I should declare error. Similarly, if you find a 0, that means this symbol matched correctly with the first symbol, so you should cross it and then go back. Keep going back until you get some cross symbol, and then you should see whatever is the next one. So your head will come and stop here. You read 1, you should cross it, and then you should go further. You should cross the hash because that is the barrier between two strings. You should further keep going until you are finding cross symbols, and then you should reach to the next symbol which is not crossed. And then you should see whatever you crossed recently, is it the same symbol? If yes, you should cross it and then keep doing this zigzag, right? So going here and like this, and keep matching. At any point of time, if it doesn't matches or one side it gets over, that you find a hash here while here it is still there are symbols, or here there are more symbols but you started finding a blank, you should raise an error and reject this, that this string is not part of the language. Correct? So this is the way actually the whole Turing machine works. So if I have to really write it in words, this is how it will look like that. On input string W, you zigzag across the tape to corresponding positions on either side of the hash symbol to check whether these positions contain the same symbol. If they do not, or if no hash is found, reject. Cross off symbols as they are checked to keep track of which symbols correspond. So basically that's what you are doing, zigzag, and then you are crossing the symbols, and if they do not find or there is no hash found, so these are the trigger mechanisms to say that there is some error. Either the input is not in the format given, so it is not in the format of W hash W, then also you want to reject because hash is not present. Or you keep matching at any point of time. If you did not find the matching, then also you should reject. So all these conditions will be tackled by this sentence. And finally, in the second stage, when all symbols to the left have been crossed off and the right is also crossed off, if anything is remaining on either side, you should reject, otherwise you should accept. So accepting is only possible that you are actually rejecting everything, right? And then you are coming back if everything goes well, that you have crossed all the symbols in left and it matched with all the symbols in right and nothing is remaining. Right. Okay, so the next part is to understand what exactly Turing machine. So this is actually in words we have defined how Turing machine should be behaving. But so far from the beginning, what we are doing, we are actually modeling it in mathematically using the tuples, components and all that. So we should be doing the same again here also. So Turing machine actually here is a seven tuple system, right? So we say that we will have 7 components here. The first one is Q as it is. What was it? A finite set of states. Then you have sigma, the alphabet. Then you have, we had stack symbol, but here it is called as tape symbols. And certainly your sigma is a subset of this, right? So even your this belongs to this, the blank symbol, right? And then delta. So here the delta is Q cross tape symbol. So basically you are reading in which state you are and where your header is pointing. So header is pointing to some tape symbol, some cell. What is a tape symbol? And based on that, you should decide in which state you are going and what you gonna update that cell with. So you have a possibility of updating the cell that you were pointing, and then in which direction you should move head. So you may move in left or right. So always remember the transition. This is a deterministic version of the Turing machine that we are studying first. So that's why we have just one option, that whenever you read a state for a given tape symbol, you will have at most one entry, and that says that you will go to some state, you will modify the content of that particular cell, and you will move left or right on the tape. Now, what else is there? So, as usual, you will have the start state. Here we don't have F as a final state, but we have a specific Q accept state. So Q accept is an accept state. And we have another Q reject as reject state. So the most important point and the difference that you will see here, that you don't have to wait for the input to be consumed. As soon as you go to Q accept or Q reject, your machine is going to accept or reject. Even maybe you might not want to read the whole input. Without reading everything, you may declare accept or reject, right? So that is something interesting, because in DFAs or PDAs or wherever, we said that it is very important for you to finish the whole input. Correct? Okay. So let us try to see one formal Turing machine. But before that, let us try to understand exactly how this thing works in the sense of configurations. Just like we had IDs and all, here we have something called configuration. So what is the configuration? If you remember, I have already used this word when I was using the word ID. So configuration is nothing but telling the current status of the machine, just like we had instantaneous description for the PDAs, right? So let's say that there is this let's say that this is 0 1 0 1 1 and your header is pointing here, correct? This is your head. So, and the current state is Q2. So if I have to write it in the sense of configuration, I will be writing as 0, 1, Q2, 0, 1, 1. So this is a configuration. Now, so in general, if I have to define a configuration, it will look like U, Q, V, right? When I am writing this, it means that on the tape, I have this content as U. The first symbol of V is pointed by the header, and currently the machine is in state Q, and this whole content is V before the blank. So definitely before the blank. Right. So this is how the configuration looks like. So now when you start the input, there is something called start configuration, starting configuration. What is the starting configuration if I have to write? It is for a given string W, it is Q0W, because currently the machine is in the start state and the header is pointing to the first symbol of the input string. Right. So this is a starting configuration. Now, the next thing that we say that when a configuration yields another configuration, just like we had a identity instantaneous description deriving another instantaneous description. So let us say that when we say that some configuration Ci yields Cj. Okay, so let us take one example. So let's say that this is my machine, and currently my machine is in state Q2, and I don't know the rest of the content. I just know that there it is A, and it is B, it is C, let's say. And this is where my head is pointing. So what is the configuration for this? If I have to write, let's say that this whole content is U, or let's not write the whole one. Let's say that this is U, this part is V, and then you have blanks available. So if I have to write the configuration, it will be U, A, Q2, B, C, V, right? Where U and V are some strings, substrings. Now let's suppose that there is a transition available which says that delta when it is Q2 at B, you should do the following. You should go to 3, you should replace it by D, and you should move left. So as per this transition, what will happen? As per this transition, this machine will change in the following. The tape this part which is U and this part which is V will remain same. Now when I'm saying Q3, so basically my state holder becomes Q3, right? So from Q2 it becomes Q3. So this is the change that is happening for the state, and apart from that, my content of B is replaced by D. So wherever I had B, that becomes D, and my header moves left, right? So previously the header was pointing to this cell, so it is going to move left. That means it is going to start pointing to this, which is this A, D, C. Now if I have to write this configuration, so it is U, A, sorry, not UA. It is U, Q3, A, D, C, V. Correct. Suppose that at this point of time, it was not this one, but it was like delta Q4, sorry, delta Q2 B is equals to Q4 D, right? Then what will happen? Then the pointer that is pointing there, it will do the same, changing B to D. The B becomes D, but the header will be actually pointing to this cell, right? And this will lead to a configuration U, Q, UA, D, Q4, C, V. Correct. So this is how the configuration changes. Now, because when you are at this, so let's say that this is my CI and this is my CJ. So I say that there is some transition function that allows us to change the configuration from CI to CJ. So due to this transition, we say that CI yields CJ. Correct? So is it possible to go from status of the machine to CJ status of the machine due to some transition? If there is any such transition, you should say that CI yields CJ. Okay. Now, we already talked about starting configuration. Starting configuration is Q0W for a string W for as input. There is something called accepting configuration and rejecting configuration. So accepting configuration may be anything on the tape, but it must contain Q accept. Whatever is the content of the tape, it doesn't matter, but it should contain the state part as Q accept, and the same for rejecting configuration, it should contain Q reject. Right. So these two configurations are called as halting configurations. Why? Because due to these configurations, you are stopping the machine and giving some answer. So if I have to write that when a Turing machine accepts input, so if I have to write, it says that machine M accepts string W if you have a sequence of configurations C1, C2 up to some CK such that three conditions are met. C1 is start configuration, starting configuration. Basically, it is Q0W. C1 is. Second is that each CI yields CI plus 1, right? And finally, third one is that CK is accepting configuration. Right? So in the same way how we have defined it for DFA and other things, this is how it looks like. Right? The only difference is now you don't see that final state, it should be one of the final state or something like that. It should be accepting configuration. Where, what does it mean? That you should have arrived at the Q accept state. Now, so, okay, Turing machine. So, what is language of a machine? As it is basically W such that you have an accepting configuration. So, W such that W is accepted on M. Right. So, if you take all such strings, you will form a language. Now, in the Turing machine, we have two different types of Turing machine. The first one is called Turing recognizer actually. And a language, if you are calling, so it is Turing recognizable. And the second one is Turing decidable. Why these two different versions of this thing? So that you should understand from so far when we were running the DFAs or PDAs. So at every step we are moving further or something like that. So there was a very less chance of getting stuck in the loop or something. Loop concept was not there. DFA, every point of time you are moving ahead if it is a deterministic, right, machine. So you are moving ahead and ahead and ahead. Once the input is exhausted, after that much a step, you are able to conclude whatever you're gonna do. But in Turing machines, it might be possible that you are not arriving at any Q accept or Q reject, but you are running in some loop, or you are taking a long amount of time. So Turing recognizer are those which just cares about the acceptance. Right. So here a Turing recognizable, they can have three possible outputs: accept, reject, or go in loop. So there are two different ways that we say it doesn't accept. Doesn't accept means either it rejects the input what you have given by going to Q reject a state. So this is called rejecting a string, or going in loop, so looping over a string. So there are three possibilities for Turing recognizable languages. When it is a decidable language, so you will find a Turing machine definitely which has only two possible outputs for a string, which is accept or reject. So let me again explain this. So Turing recognizable language is a language for which there exists a Turing machine. So you are saying that there exists a Turing machine such that for every possible input W of sigma star, it either accepts or rejects or goes in a loop. Right. But if any string W, but the certain part is, if W is part of L, it certainly halts and accepts. Why is it so? Because when it is not accepting for a long time, you cannot declare that it is a reject or a loop, correct? But you are certain that if it is going to halt and accept, then you're going to accept the string. While when you are talking about a decidable language, you are certain that there exists a Turing machine, that whenever you give an input W from sigma star, it either accepts the string or rejects the string. It never have any chance of going in loop for whatsoever string. Right. So let me give you one example of this recognizable and decidable thing. So let's say that using the transition diagram I am trying to represent, let's say that this is my start state Q0, this is Q1. For a given 1, I am going here. So if I am reading 1, so I am replacing it by 1 and I am going right. And then if I am getting again a 1, so I am replacing it by 1 and I am going to write further. So basically I want to say that if 1 is actually, so there is a language which is containing 1 to the power n such that n is even. When n is even, that means the number of ones are even actually. So let's say that I am trying to design a machine for it, and this is how does it look like. So this is Q0, this is Q1, and if you get a blank at this place, if you get a blank, So you let it be blank and you move left or right, it doesn't matter, and you go to Q reject. And if you get a blank here, you should let it remain as blank and you should move to right or left, whatever, it doesn't matter. Q accept. Now what is happening? See, when you get a 1, let's say that I have some even number of 1s available. Now for the first one, it will move my header from here to here, right? For this place. Second one, it will go here. Third one, it will come to Q1. Fourth one, it will go to Q2. And my header is continuously moving in right direction. Finally, it will reach here. And at Q0, it will be reaching here, right? At this point of time, the current state is Q0. So as soon as you try to see the what is the next, it is pointing to blank. Then what I should do? The next symbol that you find, actually not at 1, this header will be at this blank, right? Because the first one you read, you move the header here, so this is Q. This, for this you are in Q0, for this you are in Q1, then Q0, then Q1, and finally you come to Q0. So you are pointing to Q0 on the blank symbol, and whenever you are pointing blank at Q0, where you go to Q accept, and you accept the string. While if you were having 3 1s or 5 1s or any odd number of 1s, the blank will arrive at Q1. So you're going to reject the string. So any string W which is part of 1 star, it is either accepted or rejected by this machine M. Let's try designing another machine. This is Q0, certainly at blank if you receive here. It is Q accept. Now at 1 it goes here. This is 1 1 R, the same module as it is, but here when you get a blank and you moved right, after that you are not going to a Q reject, you are going to state Q2, which is doing what? Which if it sees a blank, it goes further to a new state Q3, and it says that when you see a blank afterwards, so first blank you have already seen, then you are seeing the second blank, and after seeing the second blank, you come back one step previously, and then once you reach at Q3 for a blank, you do this, right? What is going to happen for this? If you try to see, certainly if still the number of ones are even, you will end up at Q0 at the last when you see the first blank, and you will accept it. So all the number of ones will be still accepted here if they are even. But if it is odd, then you will go here, this direction. So first you will see the first blank, whatever, let's say that this is the block of ones. Once you see the first blank, and this is when you are pointing at Q1, right? After seeing this blank, what you're gonna do? You're gonna move right. So basically your header will move to the next blank and your state will be pointing as Q2. Now Q2 says that you let this blank remain blank and you come to left. That means, and you go to Q3 actually. So basically you are going to a state Q3 and you are pointing back to this symbol. And then what Q3 says? You read the blank and go to right. And this Q3 again says that after this, you will further again go back to this position and this will again go back to this. And you will have a loop here. So whenever you have odd number of ones, you are not rejecting actually, but you are going to a loop. So this machine is actually a decider, while this machine is a recognizer for the same language, right? right? So for a given language, I was able to design a decider and recognizer both. Why it is a decider? Because it definitely halts on every input. It either gives accept or reject. But a recognizer may accept and also go in a loop depending on the input, right? So that's what I was saying, that you can design a recognizer or a decider depending on the language, but you say language is Turing recognizable if you are certain there exists a Turing machine that is able to recognize it. Recognize means accept, reject, or go in loop, but certainly for the accept part, you have a well-defined halting mechanism if the string is part of the language. While for the decidable languages, there exists a Turing machine which is either accepting or rejecting. So here, this Turing machine that is recognizing, it is called recognizer, and this is called decider. Right. One thing is certain, that every decider is a recognizer also. Because you don't just have a loop, that's okay, but still it's a recognizer, right? So recognizer allows to also have loop, while decider is the constraint that you must accept or reject. So every decidable language is also a recognizable language, but it is not true for the otherwise. So we'll give one or two examples soon, but so far let me know if you have any queries on this. Sashwat, can you explain your question again? What do we mean by long time? Yes, loop actually enhances the power. So it is not enhancing the power in the sense, it is actually with a recognizer you can recognize more languages. For example, the language containing all the C programs terminating and giving output, right? So basically a language of all C programs that terminates and gives you output, that's a language. You cannot design a decider for it. Do you understand? Can you design a decider for it? Decider means, can you design some, let's say Turing machine is some algorithm. So if I am asking in the sense that can you design an algorithm for this language, that if you program, I will accept if it is part of the language and I will reject if it is not part of the language, right? So let me just write that part so that it makes you better understand. So what I am saying that let's say that there is a language which contains all C programs terminating and giving output, right? So this language contains all the C programs. Now you have to design some algorithm or something like that. Will it be of the nature of a decider or a recognizer or none? None means you cannot design even any algorithm for this language. So decider means that given a C program, some x.c, you have to say yes, it terminates and accept, or you should say no, it has an infinite loop and reject. You understand? We cannot design a decider for it, because to check whether there is an infinite loop, we don't have any algorithm properly. But designing a recognizer is possible. How? The recognizer is simple. It says that run the program x.c. If it stops, you accept. That's all. It doesn't say anything. So if it stops, you accept and you let it run. So any program that is going to be in the language will stop in finite amount of time certainly, and you're going to accept. Those programs which are not part of the language, you are not commenting about that anything. So you see, building a recognizer for this language is possible. That you are talking about only accept. You don't need to talk about reject or loop or anything else. You just talk about how I'm going to accept this string. That is simple. That if this string in the form of a C program terminates after some finite amount of time, then I'm going to accept and I will declare that this is part of the language. If not, then it is, I'm not saying about that. I'm not commenting about that. So decider requires an answer. Recognizer says, I'm going to give you the answer for acceptance, but don't ask me for the other two cases. I'm not guaranteeing you for any answer. None means you cannot even answer for accept or reject or anything. That's even harder class of problems. Okay, so long time here means that, see, for example, you have ran a program and that requires 1 million seconds, right? But you started running the program that takes 1 million seconds, but you don't know. So, will you call that program as a decider or a recognizer? Or when it comes to this language L, should you accept or reject it? The answer is you should accept, because it guarantees to stop in 1 million seconds and still give you the answer. Correct? But it may be 10 to the power any number of finite constant, and then you have that many seconds. It might be huge finite number, but it's still finite. But you cannot tell anybody to wait up to this point of time. That you can decide only for a decider, that within this time it should be able to answer yes or no, for sure. This barrier can be at par at any finite number, but okay, after that I get an answer for sure, either accept or reject. It should not happen that even when I cross that threshold, I'm still in a confusion that whether should I accept or reject, or is it really going in a loop. Right. So long time means sometimes the program might be running for long. Most of the programs that you guys run, it terminates in seconds, microseconds or something like that. You run a program and it is just computing. We say, oh, system hang ho gaya, because it's not doing anything. But you never know. Maybe the system is running and it is computing something, and after 100 years it will give you the answer. How you say that it hang? You cannot comment, right? You might have already faced it, right? That when you are clicking on something or you are running something and then it is not doing anything. Maybe it is not doing anything. You are right that it hung, something like that. Or the actual answer is that it has gone in some loop where it is really doing. That is one possibility, that it is really hanged. It is going in loop and it is never going to respond. The other possibility is that it has some other component running that is going to take 100 years, 1000 years, and after that it is going to give you the answer. You cannot decide that. So that's what decider means, that I have a clear cut answer whether to accept or something, but for a recognizer I don't know. So let us first talk about some deciders, and the recognizers and undecidables we're going to talk mostly in the second course, which is theory of computation 2. So this course we're going to terminate with the deciders only. We'll talk about only the deciders, that given every input either it accepts or rejects something. Okay? Okay, so let's try designing some machine for, so let's take the first machine that we have already seen, right? So it was for what? It was for the language W has WR. Okay. Okay, I hope you can see the image, right? Okay, so this is the Turing machine for that language. Now there is some shorthand written. So the notation, you should understand that you have already seen that when I am using the notation, for example, the notation, the arrow going from Q1 to Q2, it is labeled by 0 goes to X comma R. So this is a standard way of writing it. When you write this, this is basically saying that 0 is replaced by X and you are moving in right direction. So basically it's saying that delta of Q1 0 is equals to Q2 X and R. Now there is a shorthand way of writing if the symbol is not changing. So then you write that, for example, if you see the arrow going from Q2 to Q4, it says hash goes to R. It means that hash is actually replacing it by hash and then moving to R. So a symbol which is not changing, then you don't need to write it 2 times, you are just not writing it for the second time. So that is a standard way of writing a transition arrow, and you are labeling which contains the transition functions label on the arrow. Okay, so let us see how this Turing machine is exactly for that language and whether it works or not. Oh, Q1 to Q3 arrow means that when you are in a state Q1 and then you find a 1, then you should change the state to Q3, replace that 1 to X and move in the right on the tape. Right. So that's how you should be reading the transition. So let us see how this whole thing works. So when you are at Q1, now what is the possibility? There are 2 possibilities. Either you receive the first symbol as 0 or the first symbol as 1. That's why we have created 2 different branches. If you get a 0, now what you need to do? You have to cross all the symbols, even cross the hash, and then go and find if the next first symbol on the other side is 0. So that's what you are doing. From Q1, you are, when you see a 0, you are crossing it, you are changing it to X, means you have crossed this symbol, and then you are moving in the right. So basically 1 cell you have crossed. After that, what you are doing at Q2, you are passing every symbol and you are going in the right. So that's why you said 0 or 1, whatever you get, you replace it by the same symbol and you move in the right direction. Correct? Now, afterwards, once you have crossed all the zeros and ones, basically what it said that you are skipping all the symbols up to you reach to the hash. As soon as you see hash, you don't replace it by anything, you let it remain as hash and you move one more step to the right. Now, we will come to the self loop part later, why we have a self loop for X goes to R. But as soon as see you a 0, you should replace it by X and then go left. Correct? Why left? Because you have already found the match. You started with a 0 from Q1 and then you find a 0 at the respective place after the hash part. So 0 matched with 0 and you have crossed both the zeros, and then you should go back left to find the next symbol that you want to match from the first part of the string. Correct? Let's say that you reach to Q6. Now what you're going to do at Q6? You're going to move left, 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 whether it is a hash, whether it's a 0, whether it's whatever. Correct? So zeros, ones, X, whatever you are getting, you are just going back and back and back. And then you get a hash. You are going further left, and after that, whatever zeros, ones you are getting, you are still going back and back and back. And finally, for X, as soon as X, which was the 0, you realize that, okay, I have already matched up to this point of time, then I should do the next matching for the next symbol. So you are moving from Q7 to Q1. Now the next symbol may be again a 0 or a 1. So in the same way you have to follow the whole thing. Suppose that you got a 1, so you will be coming in this branch. This one is replaced by X, then 0 or 1, it is just you are forwarding ahead. And after that, if you get a hash, that means you have crossed it. Then now, if you remember, the first symbol after hash is a X, which you already matched with a 0. So that's why we need a loop that it crosses, it passes through all the X's, means all the symbols which are already matched. I don't have to stick to that. I don't have to care about that, right? So it is like a dead zone for me. So I just skip all those symbols. So once you cross all these X's, then you will arrive at the correct symbol that you want to match, and that you want to match from Q5 to Q6, because you started with a 1, so you are matching. If there also you are finding a 1, right? Now if you find a 1, then what you are doing, then you should cross it X, and then you are moving to left. Now 6 at 0, what it is doing, or once you cross it X, you should keep moving left, 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 and you get a hash, and then the same thing. So this is a Turing machine that you have designed. If you try to see, does it really work or not? So we can try running it for, let's say, a string, and see if it really works. So we can do it by, let me right, so this is what exactly we want to do, that the header is pointing here, it should cross this, and then it should skip to cross the X, all the hash, cross the hash, and then go next side, match it, and keep doing it. So let's take a small example and try to see if it really works. I need to actually again share a different screen. Just a second. Okay. So let's take a small string and try to see if it really works for it. So let's say that I have a 0, 1, 0 hash 0, 1, 0. So when I am at 0, 1, 0 hash 0, 1, 0, so what it will do, initially you are at Q1, right? So if I have to write it in the configuration way, it will look like Q1 0, 1, 0 hash 0, 1, 0. Now this particular configuration will yield some next configuration based on the transition. So if you remember from Q1 what we were doing, if I get the first symbol as 0, I was going to Q2 while replacing it by X. So my next configuration becomes, and I was moving in right. So this becomes X, this becomes Q2, and it is 1, 0, hash 0, 0. Correct? This is the configuration. Then what is next? Q2 at 1. What I was doing, I was really crossing all the symbols. So X in the next, I will remain in the same state. It will become 1, Q2 0, hash 0, 1, 0. Then again I will pass it X1, Q2, X1, 0, Q2, hash 0, 1, 0. Now what will happen? Q2 at hash, if you remember, we were changing the state so that we can monitor that yes, we have moved to the other side. So for this it was going to Q4 at this place. So X10 hash Q4 0, 1, 0. Now when we saw the first 0, what we were doing, if you remember, we were crossing it by x and we were moving in left and going to Q6. So x 1 0, and then we were replacing this 0 by x and moving in left. That means my Q4 comes directly before the hash and actually it becomes Q6. Q6 hash, and this 0 has already become x, means crossed. Now this, after getting, I am going backwards, left, left, left. Oh, wait a second, I have skipped one step. Sorry. Yes. So at this step, when Q4 is pointing to 0 and you say go to left, what it will do? Zero will be replaced by x. And then it will go to left, right? So 1 0, and then this Q4 will replace this 0 by x and move to left, so it will reach to Q6. Zero, 1, 0. Sorry, this is x. Okay, Q6 at hash, what you want to do? Q6 as at hash, again you know that I have to go back left, so you are going to move backwards again, and then you will go to x 1. So as soon as you get a hash, you are going one step back and you are actually converting into Q7, where you can do the looping over 0, 1 for going backwards. So it becomes Q7 here, and you have a 0, and it is hash x10. Q7, it keeps going until you find x. So x Q7 10 hash x10. This Q7 will again go back. Q7 x10 hash x10. Now your header is pointing to x. You found the last x of the first substring, so you found that okay, I have already done the matching up to this point, so I should try matching the next one. So there, this is Q7, yeah, and there you come back to Q1, so it becomes x Q1 10 hash x10, right? And in the same way, you're gonna keep doing the repetition and everything. Now the only part that is left there, if you remember, from Q1 we had two directions, one going to Q2, one going to Q3. Now on Q1, what I was doing, on Q1 I was going to 0 was replaced by x and r, and here it was 1x by r. But when you declare that everything has matched, so everything becomes x. So I am not doing the rest, you should do it, and hash x, right? So once you match this x finally, and then after you go back to this point and you will reach here, right? So basically this is the last x you are generating, and then you will be going back, and after crossing the hash at Q7 you will go back further a step, and as soon as you see x, you will try to move in the right, but in the right you will have no other symbol. You will at Q1, right? You come to Q1 from Q7. So if you are not getting any symbol 0 or 1, that means everything is matched already in the left hand side. So if you are getting a hash, what you should do? If you are getting a hash, you should go back to right, and here you have to validate one thing, that everything in the right is also crossed. nothing is left here, right? Because here everything is over. Then this side, what you gonna do? You gonna say that after hash, once you cross, for all x's you keep moving in right, and after that you should not get any other symbol. You should just get a blank. So as soon as you get a blank, you go to q accept. Now all the states, all the transitions which are not present actually go to q reject. So at given state, if you are not, for example, if you get a 0 at this point of time, you're gonna reject. If you get a 1, you're gonna reject. So I'm not mentioning because then I have to create so many transitions going to q reject. But q accept is basically we write, and q reject you should be able to understand. Sometimes if the machine is a small, we should be able to design it. So is it clear? Okay, let's take one more example quickly and try to understand how it works. So let us take the language, something which was not again regular or context free. It is L equals to 0 to the power 2, 0 to the power 2 to the power n for n greater or equals to 0. Right. What does it mean? That you have the length of the string is basically 2 to the power n. So let's say that alphabet is also 0. We are just going to receive zeros, nothing else. Right. My sigma is just zeros. So it contains 2 to the power n number of zeros. Means the number of zeros are in the form of 2 to the power n. Right. So if you have to design a machine, how you gonna do? You will realize designing machine at this stage almost becomes similar to designing some algorithm. So let's say that if I give you a number of zeros, right, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, some zeros. How you gonna check that the number of zeros in the form of 2 to the power n? Let me know. Anyone has any answer? Please unmute your mic and answer. If I have some number of zeros, can you, if you have to write a program, C program for it, what you will do? Anyone with any answer? Try unmuting yourself. Answer. Good. So you're gonna actually move from left to right and keep increasing the counter, and then you should find that if that is of the power 2. But see, that's what you guys have actually reached at a stage where you are now fond of writing the things in the form of some other functions. Turing machine teaches you the basic how a computer is going to do. So can you think in that way? No power function, nothing. I think you can speak and that will be faster than writing things, right? Yeah, so nowadays the tools are there in different languages that will allow you to really quickly check whether the number of zeros are even, prime, 2 to the power n, or this form or that form or something like that. But what should be the basic way of really finding it? on a Turing machine, I cannot really, as of now, I don't have the capability of computing power or this. It is there, but so far we are at a very elementary stage. So the only thing we can do is move left, right, and do what? Maybe change a symbol to some other symbol, something like that. That's all. Okay, I think no one is answering, so let me just give you the answer. Okay, I will show you the image and quickly try to explain from there. I think that will be easy. Okay, so the answer is very simple. What you have to do actually, you have to see whatever the number of zeros, cancel alternate zeros. When you are cancelling alternate zeros, you might end up with 1 0 or no 0. That means checking the length. Even in odd, you are able to do with the DFA, so certainly you will be able to do with the Turing machine, right? So going from left to right, you keep crossing the alternate zeros, which will actually bring your zeros in half. But at the same time, you have to check whether the given number of zeros at the initial step were even or odd. If it was odd, actually it can never be in the form of 2 to the power n, right? So if it is not in the form of 2 to the power n, if it is odd number of zeros, so you will get to know immediately in the first scan itself. But suppose that if it was even, then because of the crossing, what you did, you divided the number of zeros to half. You have already crossed half number of zeros and the half is remaining. Now what you need to do? So if a number is 2 to the power n form, when you divide it by 2, the interesting part is it will still remain in 2 to the power n form. It will be just 2 to the power n minus 1, 2 to the power n minus 2 and likewise, right? So that's what, whether it maintains that property or not, that's what you have to check. At any stage before reaching to 1, see 1 is the exceptional case where 2 to the power 0 is 1. 2 to the power 2 to the power 2 is 4 and likewise. So at any stage of division until you have reached at the one single zero, if you find odd, that means it was not actually 2 to the power n form. For example, if you take, let's say 24, certainly it's even, and then what you will do, divided by half, you get 12 zeros. Again 12 is even, you divide it by half, you get 6 zeros. Again 6 is even, you divide it by half, 3 zeros. You got an odd, and it is not a 1. So therefore, actually 24 is not in the form of 2 to the power n. So this is a basic idea that you can use, and exactly that's what we're going to use to design the Turing machine. So what it says that in the step 1, you sweep from left to right across the tape, crossing off every other zero. If in stage 1 the tape contains a single zero, that means accept. That's what is the initial condition. If you just had a single zero, that is a special case, you accept it. But if in one you are containing more than a single zero, then number of zeros, if it is odd, you reject it. While if it is even, you are not doing anything, you go back to the left hand and you again are starting. Right? Now, when you say that return back to the left hand, it is just that you have already crossed half number of zeros. So moving from left to right, you kept crossing alternate zeros. Once you reached at the end, if you got a zero and after that you are not able to cross anything, that means there was only 1 zero left and you should reject. That is, odd number of zeros were present. While if it were even, you will be able to cross successfully the alternate zeros and then you should return back to the previous. And once you are done, you have to repeat from the beginning, because checking if 2 to the power n is of the form 2 to the power, a number is of the form 2 to the power n is equivalent to checking if half of it is actually of the form 2 to the power n minus 1 or half of it is still in the form of 2 to the power n, right? So that's what exactly you are doing. Is it clear? The basic idea? Okay, so in that case, this is the Turing machine for it, right? So how this Turing machine works, you are in a state Q1, which is the start state. When you see the first zero, you are converting into blank. Now this blank is just to mark the left hand, because when you will be coming back, you will have no way to know that whether it is a left or right. Right, because in the previous version we already seen that the first symbol we converted into X, so we knew that the left hand is certainly having X, at least one X. So here what we do, the first zero we convert into blank, so that now we have a marking for the leftmost symbol. Then you are moving to the next zero, you are crossing and you are moving to right. So first zero you are keeping as it is, but in the form of blank, just for the marking purpose. Second zero you have crossed. After that, the third zero will take you to Q4. Now Q4 is actually telling you that odd number of zeros you have encountered so far, right? The first zero, second zero, and the third zero. Once you got the third zero at Q4, when you get the next fourth zero, you are actually going to state Q3 back. That now still you have even number of zeros. And this transition is converting 0 into X. That means the eventh number of 0 you are crossing. Again you get a 0, you are not doing anything, but the next 0 you are again crossing. So every alternate 0 you are crossing. Now, if you are in the odd state and you receive a blank, it is very similar to the example that we were giving while in the recognizer state. So in the blank, when you were having odd number of zeros and you got a blank, that means the total number of zeros were odd, you should immediately go to Q reject. While if you got a blank when you were at even number of zeros, then you should go to a different state Q5. Now this state, what it says, because you have already crossed all the number of zeros, that's why you got a blank, right? You have already crossed half of the zeros, then you should return back to the first zero, which is actually a blank in the beginning. So after the receiving blank, when you start moving left, you keep moving left until you find a blank, which is detected by the transition from Q5 to Q2. That as soon as you get a blank, you actually move further to right, which is going back to state Q2 as same as when you came from Q1. Now again, blank is preserved as the first zero and then you are moving further. But now you might have several X's on the way at different stages. So that's why if you will see at every state Q2, Q3, Q4, we have a self loop for X. So go forward. X means you don't care about X's. Whatever the number of X's you are getting, you just keep crossing it and keep going forward. At Q3 you are getting, you are going forward. Again, this 0 will cancel the next odd number of 0. And likewise. Now, when you gonna reject and when you gonna reject was certain that if you are getting a blank or X in the beginning, or you got an odd number of zeros. But accept is that if you have crossed everything, right? After crossing every and everything, after the blank, when you try to move right, there is nothing left. Everything has been crossed. That means all the zeros have been crossed after the first zero and they were actually successfully crossed. That means there were total even number of zeros present in every iteration when you were deducting in half. And after that, when nothing is left, that means you still have the first zero left, you accept. And that's why at Q2, when you are coming back to the first blank in the leftmost, after that, if everything is crossed successfully, after receiving the blank in the right hand end, you're gonna Q accept. So let us quickly see a run of this. So Q1 and you have 4 zeros, you convert the first zero into the blank and it becomes Q2 and 3 zeros. Next, this Q2 for this zero is going to cross because it is the second zero, so it becomes blank X Q3 00. Now this Q3 will not X 0 because it has already crossed the last zero, so it will be blank X 0 Q4 0. Now Q40 will again cross this one, and after the crossing you are encountering a blank going back to Q3, and because you had even number of zeros and you were able to successfully cross, the last zero got crossed, therefore you detected a blank at Q3, otherwise you might have been detecting a blank at Q4. Now when you got this blank, what are you going to do? Then you have to see that I have to go back. So here you are going back using Q5 state, and Q5 just allows you to come back. So if you see, we are coming to blank x Q5 0x blank, then blank Q5 x 0x blank, and finally Q5 came at the initial position. So you are pointing to the first blank. Again, when you got the first blank, then that means only one zero is present apart from this blank. So this blank again you cross as the first symbol, first zero, and then all the x's you gonna ignore altogether. The zero that you are finding first, you are going to Q3 and you are converting that zero into x, and then you are crossing all the x's, and then you don't have any zeros, so therefore you don't go to Q4 and directly you gonna go to Q5 because there is no more zeros, and because you came from Q3 and you crossed and you got a blank, so you came to Q5, and this Q5 will just take you backwards to the first blank. After coming to the first blank, you realize that when you start scanning going forward, there are no more zeros and you find a blank, so therefore you reach to the Q accept. So this is how, starting from the start configuration, you are able to reach to accepting configuration. Therefore this string is acceptable on the machine. Good question, Samar, that how can we get a x in the beginning? Suppose the string that you are giving as an input might have a x. You are just trying to manipulate, right? So you give the string as x, 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 1, 0, what it should do. So altogether you might have, let's say, x0. So it is two symbols still. The length of the string is 2 to the power that. But it is not the number of zeros are 2 to the power n, right? So string is not part of the language, it is not even part of sigma star. So it should be able to take care of that thing also. If you remember, we were saying that if there is no hash present in the previous one, you should reject. Correct. So x is just a tape symbol. That is actually, it is not, it is actually replacing the cell of 0 into x. So it is a tape symbol that denotes that you have crossed 0. Okay. So that's all for today, and then we will have the next class on, I will discuss with your CR if we can have the class on Saturday. So thank you so much.